Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, and with me, of course, is Brandon No Way. Good morning, Brandon. How are you doing this fine day, brother?
Oh, I'm pretty good, Mark. I can't complain too much. How about you?
I tell you, man, I'm just loving baseball more and more every day. I guess we're almost a quarter of the way through everything that's going with this season. We got Memorial Day coming up. I had the great pleasure of going out and seeing the Nationals and Dodgers play at Nationals Park. It's exciting stuff, man. I mean, what's your take on what's happening in the world of baseball?
Oh man, I don't know what to say, to be quite honest. I know that that's our job here, but we got a nice simple show, but there's just so much to talk about that we can cover, and it's not all baseball related too.
Yeah, and you keep trying to keep me on tack and say, Mark, you know what? It's still too early. Are we still saying it's still too early?
No, it's almost a Memorial Day deadline, and we're pretty much there at this point.
So it's time to bring down the gavel and start making some judgments on these teams and players. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
That's right. I'm getting those Infinity Stones. I'm kind of like Thanos coming out. Hopefully, it ends better for me than it does him.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, the snap of the fingers may be a little longer than that, but we'll have some assessments as we continue on with this show and throughout the rest of the season. Okay, Brandon. Well, let's get cracking. Give us a rundown, buddy. What's happening across all of the divisions?
Dang it.
Oh, come on. Where are you?
All these things. And I forgot to bring the standings page up. All right. Now they got my window finally back open. We'll start in the AL East like we usually do. The Yankees are in the lead at 30 and 13. They have a pretty healthy lead over the Rays. They're 4.5 ahead of them at 25 and 17. The Blue Jays are 7 back at 23 and 20. The Red Sox, they're starting to find their form a little bit. They're 8-2 over their last 10, moving their record up to 20 and 22, 9.5 games back. And the Orioles fall back into last place at 18 and 26, 12.5 games back.
30 and 13, man. What kind of percentage does that give them on their win loss there?
That would be 698.
698. Okay. I don't think anybody else has got that. But you can teach us as we go through the rest of the division. But the Yankees, they really don't have much to complain about. But I still hear some Yankee fans complaining about, well, Aaron Boone this, he could have done this and he could have done that. And I thought, good Lord, man, your team's now at 30 wins and you're still complaining. And Brandon, I mean, Aaron Judge was complaining a few days back. He was saying, yeah, here in Camden Yard, the way they've made changes, this really isn't good. I thought, come on. Yeah, they cut it back. I'm sorry. You don't have, what is it, the right field porch out there at Yankee Stadium? You can't get enough home runs there. You got to complain about the changes they made at Camden's Yards? Come on.
I mean, I saw the picture. He should be complaining about the size of the water bottles that they hand down in the Yankee dugouts. But, I mean, when you're so used to Yankee Stadium where you can just basically flick your wrist and a ball will go out to right field, then I guess you go to any other stadium, really, and it's going to be a bit of a change.
I suppose. I'm so done with any kind of whining that comes out of Yankee camp. You know what? We need to get somebody on the show who speaks to the love of the Yankees, because I have always been, not pleasant necessarily in those cases. We need to give them a fair shake. So we'll see how that comes. Some other fun things I was looking at in what's going on with the AL East. I know that while you're talking about the Rays being second and 4.5 games back, everybody's having injuries, and this is certainly no excuse for the Rays. But I know Margot's been out, Yandy Diaz was out for a little bit, Choi was out for a little bit, even Franco was out for a little bit. I think Franco and Choi may be back. The good thing about that is we've got to see a few more other players that we wouldn't necessarily normally have seen. I mean, Vidal Brujan, Taylor Walls is getting out there a little more often. Was it Isaac Paredes and Ramirez? Did I say Ramirez? Ramirez.
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, and Ramirez is just amazing to watch that young man. The power he puts up there at the plate is just stunning. So if you haven't been watching the Rays, that's pretty crazy team to still keep up with. And looking at the legacy players, whoa, last night, and here we are Wednesday morning. Last night, Kevin Kiermaier coming up, first inning at the plate, first pitch. And what's he do? Bam! knocks that ball. I think it's going to go out of the park, but no, it's actually in park, and he has an in park home run. So anyway it goes, Brandon, if you're hitting an in park home run, that excitement, he exudes through all the fandom out there, whoever might be in the stadium. And and Kiermaier, it was a great way for Cash, because Kiermaier's been playing well, and it's a great way that Kevin Cash, the manager, has, I think, rewarded him for what he's been achieving at the plate.
Yeah, a lot of people gave him grief over the offseason, saying that he should probably be the odd man out and traded, but he's arguably been their best player this season. And I think really the only person I'd rather see hit an inside the park home runner than Kiermaier is Ji-Man Choi. See him rumbling, bumbling, stumbling around the bases with that smile on his face, and then just gives a little thumbs up at the end. I think that's what not just Rays fans want, it's what the world wants.
Yeah, it is. They're looking for some excitement in the game, and Kiermaier certainly brought it last night. And Choi does. The chance that he gets when he comes up to the plate, you hear the whole crowd chanting. It's exciting, but they're not the only ones having some exciting things happening. You were talking about the Orioles earlier. Now, right now they are in the basement again, but there's some excitement going on there. This past week, they took they didn't sweep, but they won the series against the Rays, didn't they?
Yeah, they did win a series against the Rays, and I didn't watch much of the series because I was watching the NHL playoffs, but from what I saw from the Rays series, it's definitely one that you just want to burn the tape with, as they say, because it just seemed like they found ways to lose. I believe it was Saturday where they just needed one more strike and then the game was over, but they give up the tying run, and then right after that it starts pouring. So it's like you're one strike away. All you need is that, but you wind up tying the game, and now you have to sit there even longer when you're waiting out the rain delay. It's like a double whammy.
The Orioles took it to them, though. Here's the thing. If you look at the Orioles in the last week with the Rays, I think both those games were, at least two of the three games were extra innings. And that says something in itself, having, the wherewithal to stand up and do that. The other part about it is they brought a secret weapon in. Well, maybe it wasn't so secret. A strong prospect with Adley Rutschman. He's a great new catcher that they have. I've seen him do some great plays as far as somebody trying to steal base. He is on it. He makes sure that ball gets over there real quick.
Yeah, he's been one of the guys that they've been waiting for just to bring up, sort of like how we were with Franco. He's been one of I believe he was first overall, and was it all of MLB for prospects? He was definitely near the top.
Yeah.
And he could be somebody that really injects new life into that team, because we've been saying that, the Orioles, they're not going to be schmucks this year like they were last year. They're going to be a little bit more tougher. And even though their record doesn't reflect it, you've really seen it because they're giving the Yankees a tough time. They did last night, and they beat them on Monday. They beat the Rays in the series this weekend. So they're not pushovers like they have been the past couple of years.
No, they're a strong team. And last night when they played the Yankees, it didn't happen all of a sudden. I think it was 11 innings. Now, I'm an old man. I had to go to bed before I could see all of that. But it was interesting, too, because one of their former Yankee buddies, Odor, he was out there, and he was making a difference. It was a lot of fun to watch him as well. Odor, you have no trouble telling this guy, because he's got a dark black beard that just almost has a life of its own. Well, I wish I could achieve something like it, but he certainly did last night as far as at plate and bringing some runs in. I think he had a home run, brought a couple of the runs in for the Orioles last night. And the Orioles are still exciting to watch this year. AL East is a tough division, period.
Yeah, and looking at two of the other teams in the division, the Blue Jays, we kind of expected more from them.
Yeah.
Pitching, that hasn't been their problem. They have a combined ERA of 3.57, and that's with Ryu and Berrios struggling, where combined they have an ERA of over 5.
Ooh.
But their struggles have been offensively, whereas last year they averaged 5.2 runs per game and 1.6 homers per game. This year so far, they averaged 3.6 runs per game and 1 home run per game. Vlad Jr., his OPS is down almost 300 points. And Guys like Bichette, Hernandez, and Gurriel, they've been struggling as well. And I mean, I don't think that's going to go all year. There's too much firepower in that
Right.
offense for them to stay down for so long. And I mean, if they can get hot, like Ryu and Berrios, we know that they're really good pitchers. We know what Guerrero can do. We know what Bichette, Hernandez, Gurriel, what they can do. I think it's just a matter of time before they catch fire. And if they do, they can go on one of those runs that the Red Sox are in right now.
Yeah. And we could talk about a little bit more about the Red Sox here, I guess, when you get to Central as well.
The Red Sox are in the East, Mark.
Well, I know they are, but last night didn't they play a Central team?
Oh yeah, they played the Red Sox. Or they didn't. Red Sox didn't play the Red Sox. The Red Sox played the White Sox.
Somehow or another, a Sox team was going to win last night.
Yes.
Okay. Now I've got my shoes tied right again. I'll let you continue.
Yes, and moving to the AL Central, where the White Sox play, not the Red Sox. The Twins are still in the lead at 27-16. They're staying hot at 8-2 over their last 10. White Sox hovering around 500, 21-21, 5.5 games back. The Guardians, 7 games back, 18-21.
Mm-hmm.
The Royals and Tigers are both 12.5 back at 14-28.
Wow. Okay. So, well, what happened with the Sox versus Sox last night?
Yeah, the White Sox, they're kind of in the situation that the Blue Jays are in, where their offense isn't doing so well, but the pitching has done enough to kind of carry them to where they are, even though they haven't in the 2 games so far against the Red Sox. But where they fall short, like they have guys like Anderson, Robert Vaughn that have performed well. They have guys like Pollock, Grandal, and Abreu who have been struggling, so they don't have necessarily the firepower that the Blue Jays do.
Right.
And I mean, you can't really blame them for struggling against the Red Sox because they gave up 16 runs the other night. And the offense has been on fire for the Red Sox since the calendar turned to May. And Trevor Story so far this year, I mean, we talked with Nat Gordon earlier this year before the season started about him. And, the concerns we had about him playing at different altitude levels.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't seem to be the case. So far, he has 8 home runs and 33 RBIs.
Ooh.
And I'd like to play a little game with you, Mark. Over
Please.
his last 7 games, he is hitting .357 with a .424 on-base percentage and a 1.036 slugging percentage. Mm-hmm. Would you like to take a guess at how many homers and RBIs he's had over his last 7 games?
Over his last 7 games? I'm going to say 3.
All right. So 3 home runs. Would you like to take a stab at RBIs?
7. 7.
Well, you got the 7 part right. He has 6 home runs and 17 RBIs.
Holy
he did have a 7 RBI game a few days ago as well.
Wow.
So I guess that pickup has been worth it for them.
Yeah, I was a little light on that one, but man, that's outstanding.
You got the 7 part right.
I need to work on my math, obviously.
But since that's the AL Central, we can head out west, where the Astros are still in first place, just ahead of the Angels. The Astros are 28-16. The Angels a game back at 27-17. The Rangers are 8.5 back, 18-23. The Mariners 10 back at 18-26. And then hot on their heels, the A's at 18-27, 10.5 games back.
Yeah, the A's doesn't really surprise me. It's a tough division, much like the AL East. And I mean, you got the Astros and the Angels. I mean, you got top players on both of those teams. It's hard to make much of a dent into them. But and you look at Seattle and Texas. It's interesting because Texas is 18-23 and Seattle is 18-26. So I guess Texas must have got rained down a lot or something there.
I don't know about the Rangers, but the Mariners, they can't seem to catch a break. They've pretty much played all their games on the road, where at home they played about 18 games. They're 10-8 with a +7 run differential after last night. And on the road, they played 26 games, going 8-18 with a -34 difference on the road. And, their big acquisition over the offseason was Robbie Ray.
Oh,
of course, he won the Cy Young and was one of the best pitchers and had one of the best years of baseball. He had like an ERA of, I believe it was like 2.4 or something like that, something ridiculous. But he's really struggled this year so far. He has a 4.77 ERA and 9 starts. But there is some hope. People are saying that, his what made him good last year is starting to ramp up a little bit more this year. So maybe it's just a little bit of a slower start for him this year. But Julio Rodriguez, they called him up earlier this year. In his last 30 games, hasn't quite had the Trevor Story year, but he's had 4 home runs, 14 RBIs, a 318 average, and an 846 OPS. So there is some, darkness a little bit there for the Mariners, but there are some bright spots that they could maybe build off of.
Well, I am looking forward to see what comes out of that, Brandon. And I don't know. Like I said, I know it's a tough division. And I know when I saw Robbie go to Seattle, I thought somebody dropped the ball in Toronto, let him go, but maybe not. Maybe they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned this before. I'm getting some of this from Bleacher Report. They did a great article about teams, buy or sell. It was a great way where you can just read up on what's going on with a bunch of the big teams that had some expectations this year, whether buy or sell and what's their problems. It's a really good article. You should read it because that's where I'm getting some of this stuff as well. Always cite your sources, kids. All right, so after with the AL West and in with the NL West, where the Dodgers lead that division at 29-13. The Padres still hot on their heels at 1.5 games back at 28-15. Giants, they've fallen off a little bit. They've struggled their last 10 games, going 3-7, but their record is 23-19, 6 games back. And the Diamondbacks at 23-22 are 7.5 games back. And then the Rockies are 9 games back at 20-22.
Wow. Well, there was some rumbling though last night in San Diego. And I'm sorry, there was some rumbling last night in there was some rumbling last night in San Francisco though. Steve Cohen's boys, they made it out there, but somebody else, an old Atlanta Brave, came in and made a difference.
And would that be Joc Pederson?
That would be Joc Pederson. You are absolutely correct. and the interesting thing too is Joc Pederson last night in their win against the Mets, it was 13-12. What did Joc deliver? He brought 3 home runs and 8 RBIs. So that's what led the Giants in part to their I think it was a walk-off last night. And the last at bat was Joc Pederson. So he hit one and brought somebody in. I can't remember who it was, but man, it was fantastic to watch him, Mr. Pearls of Wisdom. And speaking of which, Barry Bonds did share some pearls of wisdom with Joc before the game. And it must have inspired him some, because here's what he had to say about that.
Yeah, it was kind of strange. It was a weird start to the day. It sounds cliche, but Barry Bonds was here, and he talked to me and Lamont Wade for quite a while, and we were just talking, and then the discussion kind of continued, and next thing you know, it was like 6:25, and I was like, oh man, I gotta go. But yeah, it just freed my mind up. The way he talks about hitting just helped me out a little bit, and yeah, I mean, that was still kind of speechless processing it all, I guess.
Well, I mean, if you're going to be inspired by somebody, I guess Barry Bonds is as good as anybody. And it sounded like it freed his mind. I mean, just talking to him all the way up to almost game time and then going out to the field must have had some positivity rolling through his head that he took all the way up to the bat and made a difference.
Yeah, they might want to do that a little bit more if he's going to give them 8 RBIs.
Yeah, I was looking at MLB.com, and Maria Guardado. She was saying something to the effect that this may be the MLB game of the year. I have yet to watch it. I'm going to be going to MLB.tv later today to see that, because that just had to be one exciting game for Pederson and the Giants, and to beat the Mets. So kudos to them, and an exciting time in the NL West. One thing I'll mention too, just briefly, with the Dodgers, I did get to see them the other night when I was in DC, and it's always fun to watch, Freeman and Mookie. Mookie's always amazing, but last night he was supposed to be off. Yeah, he was supposed to be off, and And Cody Bellinger was not feeling 100%. And they said, hey, Mookie Man going out there? Sure. You just want 2 home runs? Sure. Okay, so he delivered 2 home runs on a night that he's supposed to be off, Brandon. I mean, come on, really? Yeah.
I mean, maybe they said please.
Well, when you got talent and it's great like that, it's always glad, the fans are glad to see him deliver. So that was a lot of fun too with the Dodgers.
Yeah, and the one part I like about the Giants, and Bleacher Report brought this up as well, they seem like an old school version of baseball in the sense where they're not the most powerful team, but they still score 4.9 runs per game. They rank 5th in on-base percentage and are tied for 3rd in productive outs. That's old school, especially now where you have the mentality of home run or bust. You don't really see teams that just put the ball in play, move the runners, stuff like that anymore.
Yeah, and you never know what kind of ball you're playing with either. So if you can play the short game, man, that's the way to be able to go, because those games are more exciting. I love a home run as much as anybody, but give me a game where there's some action going out on the field. And I'm really glad to hear they're doing well there. I guess our old buddy, let's see, is that where Longoria went?
Yes.
And I guess he was playing 3rd for them. I haven't looked lately to see what he's doing.
Yeah, I haven't heard as much about him ever since he left the Rays. Of course, being with the Giants, there's so much talent on that team. It's easy to get covered up. But hopefully if they make the playoffs, he can, shine a little bit more and, get the spotlight that he had here, because he was always one of those players that was really fun to watch, especially like in his younger days, because he always seemed to have that big clutch hit.
Yeah, he was always an exciting player, to watch. And he certainly made a big difference in what the Rays were able to do when he was here. So NL West, again, looking at a strong division, still all in all, most of the guys are fairly tied together. Colorado's still struggling a bit, but I would love to be able to live out in that part of the world and watch those teams. If I was anywhere near, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, it has to be exciting.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to watch a baseball in all of California.
Yes, indeed.
But this division's a little less exciting, but it's still got some good teams in it. The NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers are in first place, 27-16. The Cardinals at 24-19 are 3 games back in second. Then the Chicago Cubs are at 18-24, 8.5 back. The Pirates, 17-25, 9.5 back. And then the Cincinnati Reds at 14.5 back are 12-30.
Chicago Cubs. Let me just jump there for a minute, right in the middle of that mess. I know our good buddy Sarah Sanchez. She put up on her Bleed Cubby Blue podcast recently. I think the title was Agony or Apathy or something along those lines. I thought, as a fan with that club and having lost all the players they've lost in the last few years, it's got to hurt. But and you're looking here for the last 10 games. Oh, they're 6-4, so maybe there's some hope there. I don't know. But I'm looking across, and of course, my favorite team there in NL Central, it ain't the Cards, and it ain't the Cubs or the Pirates or the Reds. It's Milwaukee Brewers. And part of that's because I know some players we've had from the Rays that are on there. One of them being Hunter Renfroe, one of them being Willie Adames, and who else is out there? It escapes me at the moment. There's another gentleman as well. But the thing is, right now, everybody's suffering from some injuries. And I know Freddie Peralta, he's having some difficulties right now with right shoulder injury. And that's got him on like a 15-day IL. Renfroe, he's on a 10-day IL. Willie Adames was out for a bit. I'm not sure if he's going to be coming back soon. I don't think he's out for a very long period of time, but he's been out. So there's some challenges there for Milwaukee. I mean, they're leading it right now. Like Sir said, they're 3 games ahead of St. Louis. And quite honestly, I thought they'd be doing even better than that, even though I guess maybe my expectations are high with them having a .628 winning percentage.
I mean, I put expectations on them last year and they didn't reach them. So I guess you're welcome, Brewers fans. I didn't say that they're going to win the division this year, but that's working out pretty well for them this year. And if they can get those injuries, tempered down a little bit, to where they get more of their stars healthy, like Renfroe and Adames, I think they could be a real threat in the NL.
Well, looking forward to seeing that because I've always been excited about the Brewers.
No, I think we got everything covered there with the Central, but we can end our road trip out east.
Woohoo!
As we will end our road trip here in the NL East. The Mets still leave that division 29-16. Then you got to go a bit ways back to second place where we actually have a tie as well between the Phillies and the Braves, both 8 games back at 20-23. And then 9 games back are the Marlins at 18-23. And then the Washington Nationals at 14-30 are 14.5 games out of first.
Wow. I mean, where do you start here? You got Steve Cohen, and you say, well, he's throwing all that money at that team. And he has. He's got a really strong team with the Mets. Not surprisingly to see them doing so well. I think we all hope that the World Series winners, the Atlanta Braves, would be doing better than they did. But, they lost a lot of great talent. Well, think about it, though, Brandon. It was last year, right after the All-Star game. I think it was Alex Anthopoulos. I think he's the GM. He brought in a lot of talent, including Joc Pederson, who we were talking about a moment ago, who did such a great job with the Giants the other night. So that team's still struggling. Philly, I'm sorry, I don't even care about them. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm sure Philly fans appreciate that one, Mark.
Yeah. Well, Miami, I expect a little bit more too. I expect a lot of everybody out there, but I thought they'd be at 500. But they're 18-23, and to our good buddy Lou Schiff, I hope they continue to get better. I think it's a good team. It's just some things aren't falling into place for them. And then you get to the Nationals. Jeez, Pete.
You have some experience with the Nationals. Would you like to discuss them?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it was a good thing. I had the opportunity to go, and I was up in D.C. earlier this week, and go see the Nationals on Monday play against the Dodgers. And my expectations weren't great for the the Nationals. I mean, like you're pointing out here, that today they're 14-30, and you're heading up against the Dodgers. It was a great experience. I mean, most of my time in ballparks has been at the Trop, okay? And I haven't had enough exposure outside of the enclosed tomb, as some would say. It was a great experience. My wife and I went there, and I'll kind of give you a quick walk through some of it. As we came up, we went through the home plate entrance. We got there before it opened. It only opened 90 minutes before the game. We didn't get to see any batting practice, which kind of ticked me off. But as you walk up to that home plate entrance, you see these bronze statues of like Josh Gibson, Frank Howard, Walter Johnson, all these giants. That's exciting. You're walking in, and inlaid in the brick in 10, 12-foot numbers representing historic baseball dates in D.C. All this just kind of, you get this feeling of history and of strength. So once you get in there, I guess they got up to at least a 400 level. My wife and I, we moved around to a few different places in the stadium, and it was fun. It was electric. The stadium at night, not surprisingly, with Dodgers playing, they had probably about 35% or more of the audience, because Nationals have had some difficulty with challenges with their audience. But I saw that attendance recently has been around 20,000, which isn't bad compared with some of those we know.
I'd take that.
Yeah, Trop are out there with that, more with the Oakland A's, which could be worse. It was nice. One thing I would warn fans anywhere before you go to stadium is make sure you understand what you can and cannot take into the stadium. They are very strict about the size of any kind of purse or bag you bring in. My wife, I thought she brought in a modestly sized purse, but they came over, the lady held up a little placard to it and said, no, this is a little large. So luckily this was before they even opened the gates, and they had lockers over there that you could use to put your stuff in, and they would give you a clear plastic bag.
That's actually good. At least they have somewhere to put it. You don't have to actually go back to the car or go home.
Well, my wife said, well, should I go back to the hotel room? I said, no. And luckily our hotel wasn't no more than, less than probably a quarter mile walk. That's the thing about DC. You're close to everything. There's hotels all around Nationals Park. I mean, from our view, we could see the outfield, you could see the Capitol, you could see everything. But it was a very enjoyable time. One other thing I was saying about the misses in the purse is that it cost $13 to put it in the locker, and you had to download an app. Of course, you always have to download an app for everything these days, right?
They don't just give you like the little key that you wrap around your wrist.
Oh, no, not anymore. No. And food-wise, they had quite a variety of things. There was a Venezuelan/Colombian food. It was called, I think, a ripa. It's a tasty little thing. You get a bun of sarts, a piece of bread, top and bottom, on the chicken or roast beef. Now it's a non-gluten, which means it was a corn-based, and it's supposed to be all sliced and diced in there, and it's tasty. But not only do they give you just a regular wrapper to hold it, they put a cardboard box beneath because the thing is so daggone greasy, a little sloppy. So, but that was a lot of fun. So I've probably given you more than you ever really want to know about Nationals Park. But let me just say it was a great experience. I'd go there again, and watching the game was fantastic. So I told you about the do's and don'ts and the fun of actually being in the stadium, but watching like Mookie Betts, watching that arm over from right field, throwing a ball over to third, that's amazing. Watching Freddie Freeman, and I could have kicked him because it was really looking good. It looked like there was going to be at least 3 runs coming in, and the ball goes over by first base. Freddie Freeman leaps in the air and snaps that ball straight out. It's like, wow, that's why he's Freddie Freeman.
I mean, that actually seems really fun. I kind of wish I could go there now. I mean, watch the Dodgers. Looking at a picture of an Arepa, it looks really good. They don't look as greasy in these pictures, but they look really good to try. And I mean, I'd love to go to a ballpark and it actually feels like a major league stadium. And I mean, the Trop isn't horrible. It's fine for what it is, but it doesn't have that major league feel like what we have locally when we go down to Amalie Arena or Raymond James Stadium, where it actually feels like a big event, like a professional sporting venue.
Well, you're absolutely right. And it did, that openness being out there. And as you're looking out the field, even this signage looks better. Everything looks better. It looks better and bigger. And there's a sense of being outdoors that adds another energy to the game that I don't always feel like I experience at the Trop. And again, I'm not completely dissing the Trop because I don't mind not being in the rain and having 72 degrees.
Especially right now because it's hot out.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of rain, a lot of humidity. Oh, it's 92% today, by the way, in Plant City.
I'll stay inside.
Yeah, I think it's just 8% less more rather than be rain. But anyway, it was a great experience. I encourage everybody. And it's making me want to make sure that I go out to more of the national parks. So looking at possibilities of going to Atlanta and Miami at least this year. Where would you like to go? What are some of the parks on your list that you'd like to go see soon?
Well, we actually did a show or part of a segment of a show last week where we talked about this. And I mean, I wanted to go to like the Oracle Park out in San Francisco. I thought that place looked nice. I'd love to go to see the Braves Stadium. The Chop House out there looks really good. It looks like a beautiful stadium in a nice area that they built up, the Battery. I think that looks really cool. Where else? St. Louis. I love the big brick building. I feel Citi Field. I think it looks cool. I know some people don't really seem to think that. I think personally, this is controversial. I think it looks cooler than new Yankee Stadium. If old Yankee Stadium was still up, I would love to go there. But I think Citi Field, that looks really nice. They got that like bridge design out there in right field. I think that's really cool.
Yes, and there are a lot of great stadiums out there. And if you all want to send us anything about this, you can send to Brandon at Sports Splits Pod on Twitter and Mark at The Baseball Biz on Twitter. Love to hear your all's comments on what stadiums you like, what you did and didn't like, what foods you did or didn't like. But we're all about having fun. And I can tell you, I was just really happy that I had the opportunity to go see the Nats in DC. And Soto, he had a couple of foibles out there, problems out there in the right field that day. And he seems like he's got some improvement he needs to do at the bat too. But exciting players, and if you're up against the Dodgers, they really didn't expect much more. So we'll see. Yeah,
At least you got to see 5 innings of a perfect game before it got jinxed.
That was something, man. Yeah, you don't get to see that very often. So that was something, man. Brother, but like I said, they had some legends you could see when you were walking into the park, and we've got some walking legends out on the fields these days too, and not just the legends and statues. We're talking out there in front of the Washington's Nationals Park, but we got the legends still walking around like Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina, and not only these guys are legendary and doing some things differently right now too, aren't they?
Yeah, you don't usually see a first baseman and a catcher, especially in the twilight of their career, being thrown out on the mound. And thankfully for Molina, it was when they were so far ahead of the Pirates, they just put him out there to save a bullpen arm, which, I mean, it's cool to see people playing out of position from time to time. But unfortunately, sometimes you'll get the Brett Phillips treatment where he goes in there and he has fun with it, but he unfortunately gives up bombs.
Yeah, there's something about the embarrassment of the game. We talked before about the NCAA softball, and they have a rule after 5 innings of if one team's up 8 runs, the game's over. I mean, there's just 7-inning games usually, but guess what we do? We put position players in and just ride it out till it's done. Brett's fun to watch too. As long as we're looking at the older legends in here, I think maybe we should take somebody like Miguel Cabrera, and he could come out behind throw off his catcher's mask and walk to the mound as well. Maybe it should be. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that'd be something to see. We get the hat trick of legends playing out of position. Maybe we could put Adam Wainwright behind the plate, since they did set the record for the most wins of a battery.
That's right.
They set that, so why not maybe throw him behind the plate and Molina out on the mound for an inning when they're in a blowout situation like they were.
That's something else that you can send Brandon and who else you would like to see as position players. Oh, Brandon. And as long as we're talking about legends, it's not surprising to see these guys go ahead and participate in commercial ventures. I saw Dwight Gooden. I didn't really expect to see Dwight Gooden doing much of anything. There he is on the screen. And let's see, who else? Did you see that spot with him in his Ghostbuster uniform?
Oh, yes. I think that's a funny commercial.
Yeah, it's nuts. Him and doing for DirecTV. Let's see who else is. Oh, Big Poppy's in it. And all of our one of our favorite players that we all love, Mr. A-Rod, he was there as well.
Wait, I thought that was Ken Griffey Jr.
Oh, you're right. You're right. So it was Ken Griffey Jr. Correct me on this. Okay. DirecTV commercial, Ghostbusters. Who was it, Brandon? Because obviously, I didn't have my specs on that night.
It was Randy Johnson, Ken Griffey Jr., David Ortiz, and America's favorite, Alex Rodriguez.
Did he bump into anybody during the commercial and knock them down? Oh,
I don't see anything. He was just there.
Okay.
Telling you about your cable subscription.
Oh, brother. Well, it's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun this week. Baseball's coming up. One thing we kind of hinted at is it's going to be the Midsummer Classic before you know it. I mean, it's actually not that soon. It's July, but the voting has to happen sometime. And I think usually begins early June. So we were talking about injuries. I'm not sure who's going to be ready and who's going to be selected. I haven't put together my list. I want to start putting some of the things together. Maybe we can talk next week about that.
Yeah, tease a future topic.
There you go. A couple other things I'd like to see coming up too is we're going to talk about Mary Kids. We'll talk about NCAA softball because it's postseason and getting down tournament time and see how that's going to play out. And she's going to share some things with us. I saw also a article from Bill Shea at The Athletic talking about a fan cost index. And basically he talks about breaking down, what a fan has to spend, going to a game. So I'm looking forward to maybe talking a little bit more about that. What else have you got on here, Brandon? What's else is going on in the wild world of sports Blitz Pod?
Oh, well, we got a lot going on right now. I mean, just talking about the NHL, the Lightning, they swept those stinking Florida Panthers. It was a great victory, very satisfying to see them get swept considering the rivalry. So they clinched their spot in their third straight Eastern Conference final. I believe that's the sixth or seventh time over the last 10 years that they've made the conference finals. So heck of a run there. Won 10 series in a row. So hopefully we can keep that streak going for a long time, and they're not satisfied. So that's great to see. We got the Battle of Alberta going on. That's a big, intense rivalry where the teams hate each other. The Rangers and the Hurricanes playing for the other spot in the East, where, I mean, those teams, they're well on their way for hating each other. They're fighting every 5 minutes, it seems. So that's just part of the NHL. It really gets the blood going, and you get true rivalries, it feels like, which you don't get a whole lot in other sports as much anymore, unfortunately.
You get the blood going out there on the ice.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. At the Lightning, they've blocked like 200 shots already, and they're only halfway through the postseason. And, that puck is hard. It's a frozen piece of rubber. And I'm not getting in front of that, just being completely honest. But, I mean, that's what they're willing to do to win it all.
Yeah. I know your boy Vasilevsky. It's just been amazing watching that young man.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best in the world. And, people will say just Igor Sasevsky. I can't say his name. Igor for the Rangers. I'm tongue-tied with that. People are saying that he's possibly the best in the world. I respectfully disagree. I've seen what Vasi's done the past few years. I don't think it's really close. If he had done that over a few years as well, you could have an argument. But, I mean, he's carried them at times to 2 cups, and he basically carried them in Game 4 against the Panthers, who were the highest scoring team in NHL history over the past 20, 30 years. And he held them to only 3 goals over 4 games.
Wow.
So I think he's the best in the world. So it's great we get to watch him every night. And what else is going on? We got an exciting week of motorsports, one of my favorite weeks, and people call Sunday the greatest day in motorsports. We have breakfast in Monaco with the F1 Monaco Grand Prix, lunch in Indy with the Indy 500. That's always fun to watch. And then my favorite race of the day, the Coke 600 up in Charlotte, where I actually went to one time. It was a very fun race, very long race, about 5 hours. I mean, 600 miles. But it's a really fun day to watch. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but I definitely recommend at least checking out parts of each race, because they're events, and you can see why they get so popular.
Well, I know I've had the opportunity once to go see the Indy 500, and that was exciting. We did a lot of partying and reveling in the infield, though. So, but no, it's a great sport to watch, and wow, that's jam packed, man. That's a lot going on in a very short period of time with some top tier events.
That's right. Thankfully, the Lightning won't be playing on Sunday, so I can spend all day parked in front of the TV watching cars go in circles, as people say.
All right. Well, if you guys are interested in sharing more about your favorite sports, believe that there's something else besides baseball, you can reach out to Brandon at Sports Splits Pod, me, Mark at The Baseball Biz. We're always glad to have a little fun with you, share your thoughts, etc. And it's been great, Brandon. Anything else we need to make sure folks know about?
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter. I am at Sports Splits Pod. Mark, you are at The Baseball Biz, and you can find us on Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, Apple, pretty much anywhere where podcasts are played. And remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, spread the message about us, because we have a whole bunch of fun doing this, and we'd love for more people to listen in, and hopefully you'll tune in again next week.
Special thanks to XAKRUX for the music, Rocking Forward.